Okay, so this is not the first time I'm going to talk about this subject. Actually, it's going to be the third time. But this time, what it changed is I can talk about that because it's been a long time and there's no more confidentiality agreement. Okay, so the first time I talked about that was in 2019. And as you can see, I'm talking about maybe a porphyry. So I wasn't sure. It was just a proposition related to detachment fault. And last year, there was a figure, because once again, I saw that figure with the orogenic gold the deposit belt, and I don't like it too much. I'm going to explain why. I explained it last year, but in resume, it's just because in yellow, that's the orogenic gold belt. Okay, they call it this way. But the problem, if you do a little bit of literature, you're going to see that that's a low sulfidation, that's porphyry, that's another low sulfidation, you know? So it's not the right type of deposit. So it's easy, you know? So we have to be very careful. So in red, this is where it's getting complicated. And people, they want to call it orogenic because orogenic sounds like money, you know? Oh, it's big deposit. But we don't care. We have Herradura. You guys, these two guys, they deserve a round of applause. I'm going to do it right now, okay? I want to applaud these guys, okay? Because they did a good job. They have an 8 million ounce deposit of gold at 0.7 gram per ton. And we don't need orogenic. We need Herradura. And there's more of that, okay? Seriously. And they invite me to visit the deposit. I thank you. So I'm pretty anxious to see if there is orogenic gold veins. And for me, there's multiple events. And so I've been looking for years for the orogenic gold veins. I'm from Canada. So and the people I'm working with is Michel Gauthier, specialized in orogenic, Richard Tosdal in porphyry, Bud Hillmeyer from Electrum, one of my best talk in my life. William Chavez, Mike Feinstein, thank you, Mike. Richard Goldfarb, we talk about these things, you know, because it's tough. And Jeffrey Lundquist, a good thing, you know, he lives in Canada and the university next to my house. We have good talk, you know, it was really important. But one of the best talk, it was really with Martin Valencia. He did a talk a month ago. It's one of the best talk I heard in my entire life. You can be proud of this Mexican geologist. He's very good. Thierry Talmu also, we talk. Jean-Marc Staudy, we talk about this also. And thank you, Doc, for inviting me here. Thank you. So I think it's the last time I'm going to talk about this. If you want it, you invite me to university, to your company, I'll do the talk. But this is the last time I'm talking about orogenic. I have to move on to something else. Next year, I'm going to do it with difference between intermediate and low sulfidation. Big topic. Okay. So, do I believe in orogenic gold deposit? Yes. Yes, one time I went into, I work a lot in Sonora, and I visited a project called Escondida, and we have folds. We see the folds? And we have vein in the fold, so that's synorogenic, you know. So, and it's called settlery veins. So you can see the vein there, and they're white quartz veins. And inside, you're not going to see free gold. You're going to see these weird minerals. It's called gemsonite. So it's lead, iron, and antimony. So it fits with the model of Goldfarb, you know, with epizonal, you know. So these things, and not epithermal, epizonal, very important. So. That fits, you know, and I didn't do fluid inclusion, so I'm not sure. It looks like it. Okay. So, and the second thing, so that's from the talk from Martin Valencia. So he reminds me, the first person that brought it was Michel Gauthier, but once again, he reinforced that with possibly, not possibly, it's there. There's a retro-metamorphic gold endowment in Sonora. Okay, I'm going to explain why I believe in that and what I observe. Okay, so that's really, it's not here, but it's really in that red zone, you know. This is where I, actually, my thesis was around that area, around here. Okay, so it's called Cumeral. So that's a key information. Before I was not, I want to keep that secret for me, you know. This is my little secret, but now I can share it. So what do we have? We have, you see, that's another orogenic quartz vein, okay? The rest is just orogenic. If you do fluid inclusion here, it's going to be orogenic quartz. But there's nothing in that shit. The gold is really in those little veinlets. In the fracturate, the orogenic quartz there's nothing. It's just a brittle environment that receive the mineralization. And it's quartz epidote with free gold and pyrite. So that's retro-metamorphic events. And I'll develop about that. So this is why I believe in that. I believe in facts, not in imagination. I want facts. I want something to touch. Okay, so what is orogenic gold deposit? And it's funny because I had the talk with this young guy before about the presentation, very good presentation. But we're going to debate again on the existence of orogenic gold deposit. And I don't want to go there. I just want to go with the facts. Okay, so presuming that orogenic gold exists, okay, so gold deposit formed during orogenesis, okay, have to be formed during it, not after, okay. So, and it's going to be hydrothermal fluids, origins from the prograde metamorphism, not later, prograde, okay. That's important to point out. And also, they have reputation to be big deposits. So, okay, it's orogenic, okay, we don't care. So, and the origin, and they are metamorphic fluids, okay. With, there's gold in there because you can have metamorphic fluid and there's nothing, okay? Yeah. Or else we would have like gold everywhere in the mountains, you know, because we have the quartz remobilized. It's just in specific place. You get specific conditions to create that. And it has to be channeled into a deep structure that reach something to the amphibolite facies. So that's very deep faulting. We talk about 15-kilometer faulting, okay? That's big. And in Canada, we're born with orogenic gold deposits, you know, so we have a definition about it. So it's the when the pyrite is too hot, you know, it changes. So you defossorize it, and the sulfur goes into the fluid, and it can start to scavenge gold into its pathway to the surface, okay? And it goes with volatile, and the volatile helps that phenomenon. Okay, so orogenic gold deposit, the concept comes from David Grove from Australia, François Robert from Quebec, Canada. I know him personally. And Richard Goldfarb. These guys, they did a big job because before everything was magmatic, you know. So these guys, they fight for years for that concept. And Richard Goldfarb will never leave. He says, I will not change, you know. I bred that and I want to keep it. And it's okay. But we know that it's very robust from 18 kilometers to 9 kilometers. This is robust. But after that, from 9 to 3 kilometers, there's a gray zone. Because the fluids are just at 270 degrees. I'll explain that later, okay? So it's gray. After, it's difficult to move minerals or elements after 270, especially metals. Okay, so that's the model. So, cookie cutter. Okay, so people in exploration, okay, so we have a cookie cutter. So they think that the world is homogeneous and we took the cookie cutter and we're making cookies and it's beautiful. But life is not like that. So sometimes some deposits, like these ones are so deposit, you have to make your own model. And a good friend of mine also, if you're a geologist, you have to read this article one time in your life, J. Hudson. It's a really old article. It's use and abuse of ore deposit model in mineral exploration, and even if it's old, it's still useful these days. I recommend to read it. If you want, you can. I can send you a copy of it. Okay, so the first thing to point out with orogenic gold deposit, you need CO2. That's very important. You are in a reductive environment. If you don't have it, it's not orogenic. It's the fundamental. If you go to the bottom, to the roots, to the top, you need the CO2. You're going to have a lot of carbonates. That's fundamental. If you don't have carbs, be suspicious about your orogenic. Okay, and orogenic didn't born with them. Even they were Canada, because Canada we have so much orogenic gold. So the first concept was made by Calvin. And you can see here, you get amphibolite. So everything starts here in the amphibolite. And after it goes into the green schist. So when you have a deposit inside the amphibolite, you have to be suspicious also, because this is where sometimes you can have a deformed deposit. But that's another talk. Okay, so I don't want to go there, but I think, how much people have experience with orogenic gold deposit? Like, leave your hands. Okay, so you want to do, okay, so I'm going to a little resume then. Okay, so thank you. Thank you to be there. Okay, so I think the continuum deposit, so the continuum is from the bottom, from amphibolite to the top. I think this is too much. I think we should separate the environment because there's different conditions for that. So okay, let's make a resume. So we need horizontal shortening, obviously, prograde metamorphism, We need a gold endowment in the rock that's going to be metamorphosed, that's going to expose the gold. That's really important because or else there would be gold everywhere in the mountain, once again. So we need a fertile rock. And normally we're going to metamorphose the greenstone belt. So, and I think another thing is it's really important to separate the epizonal from mesozonal. It's fundamental. It's two different realms. And also, when you are in the mesozonal, people forget about that, but you have no porosity. Everything, especially in amphibolite facies, there's no more porosity. Everything is gone. Everything is compact. The only way to have a porosity is with shearing. So even in schist, you have very limited porosity. So what else to say? Oh yeah, and the carbs. Quartz carbs is very important for your orogenic. Okay, so for me, the real orogenic one, okay, it's the mesothermal inside the mesozonal realm, so inside the green schist. So what do we need, okay, to do orogenic, like the real one, in my opinion? So we need crystal thickening. So we have to, the orogenists have to be enough thick to create granulite and amphibolite facies. Without that, you don't have enough heat, and you will not be able to dehydrate your green rocks. Okay, so you need enough mineral to be dehydrated to produce the water. You need hydrothermal fluids, of course. So you need ligands. So you need sulfur, chloride, arsenic. So elements are going to be able to scavenge the gold during the pathway, or else the gold is going to stay there. So you need also active faulting, because sometimes faulting is not active. It changes, tectonics change, and you can avoid. So it stays like this. And also, the most important thing for me, and that's from Stuart Simon, from the SEG, so it's the mechanism of precipitation. That's fundamental, or else you just have background of gold. So that's the good point where you're supposed to listen. You're just going to have a background of gold. You need efficiency to precipitate your gold. Necesitamos un procesos muy efectivos para precipitar el oro, sino solamente es un background de oro. Cuando hay un gran cambio de presión, ya normalmente precipita el oro. Okay. So, okay, that's a complex figure, but in short words, when you have the metamorphism, it takes time for the rock to have enough heat to be able to expose the gold or the sulfur, It's a long process. Everything is not automatic. It's a long process. So, entonces, so if you want to produce that water that you need for the orogenic gold deposit, so the chloride, after 1550 degree, goes to hornblende, it's going to produce water. Muscovite is going to produce case part, and after water, quartz is going to become. So after 270 degree, around 200 degrees, quartz become like plastic. And if you continue after 250, it's going to change forms. And at 450, quartz can become, if you have the right environment, it's going to become silicic acid. So you're losing your quartz. So the quartz is going to be absorbed in other minerals and move on to higher temperature metamorphic minerals, or it's going to go as acid. And people ignore that, and that's really important to mention that. And pyrite, if you dehydrate it, it's going to become pyrrhotite, and this is where you create your sulfur. A good way to scavenge and transporting your gold in a orogenic gold deposit. And the carbonate, so if you want to go high temperature, you're going to go decarbonization and you create the CO2 gas. Or you can also, so if you're putting all these things that were during the dehydration process, you're going to result in the reductive fluid composed of water, carbonate acid, silicic acid, and sulfur complex to be able to carry your gold. Okay? That's fundamental if you want real orogenic ones. You're going to have a low salinity. If you have high salinity, it's something wrong. You might be epithermal. And of course, you're going to do a devolatilization. So you have chlorine, chloride, fluorine, bore, lithium, and beryllium. Okay, so the phenomenon is happening here in the phibbolite. So this is where you're creating your fluids, and they're going to migrate all to the green schist. And for me, the green schist is way enough to precipitate your gold. For me, let's go. For me, it's almost how do you want the gold to go from 15 kilometers to 9 kilometers without precipitating? I'm going to explain you the phenomenon, how you precipitate the gold in orogenic, and you're going to tell me that gold is going to continue after the 9 kilometers. For me, okay, I need proof. If someone can show me that, I'm going to be happy to see it. But for me, it's difficult to believe. I'm going to explain you why. So that's your orogenic gold. Okay, so you have proximal, intermediate, and distal. So whatever, too complicated for the moment. Let's keep it simple. So when you are in the middle of your fault, so you have very strong carbonate alteration. Your rock is bleached with sulfur, and the more you go, the more you distal, the more you're going to lose that carbonization, and it's just little veinlets. So, okay, so we have to remember if we are in the real orogenic one, so we are in the sorry. Okay, so we want the mesozonal inside the mesothermal inside the mesozonal. Okay, so the temperature range is really important. So it's going to be 280 to 450, and the quartz is going to be plastic. So we are in the metalite realm. So it's difficult to have porosity because the quartz is going to start to try to fill the gaps, where it's opening. So we have less porosity. So there's less chance to be pervasive except for the shear zone. So, and this is why if we go to a brittle environment, it's going to form a vein because there's so much pressure that the fluid is going to fill all the cavities. That's important. And this is when you're going to precipitate your gold. So the mechanism to precipitate is not the change of temperature, it's the change of pressure. And there's a beautiful diagram that was made by RIMSIP. And so in short terms, what it says, it's really the pressure change that's going to make precipitate your sulfuric acid into quartz. So what's going to happen? You're going to precipitate your gold. So the environment is going to pH is going to be neutral, nothing acid. We're too deep on Earth. There's no reaction to oxygen. Everything is reduced. And once again, CO2 is really sensitive to pressure change. So this is why it's gonna go to gas. And if you have the right, if you have a lot of calcium, you're gonna do your carbonates. Something else to say? Good. Okay. Okay. And something to remember also. So when you are in the green schist, there's no more granite. You're gonna have schist. There's gonna be a foliate. There's a foliation that's gonna appear. And if you are in the shear zone, there's going to be muscovite schist. If you are mafic rock, it's going to be a chloride schist. And if you are ultramafic, it's going to be a sheared serpentine or a tremolite talc schist. So your rock's going to, it's obvious to recognize. So if you have gold inside of that, it's difficult. So it's a way to figure out if we are in orogenic. Okay, what else to say? Okay, so this is how it looks like. So that's a shear zone. So it's a large zone, and you can see there's some acidification, and that's something important to mention. So when you are at the bottom of the green schist facies, you're too hot. So you are 450, and gold is going to precipitate. Quartz is going to precipitate around 350. So you have like a 100-degree zone where it's not favorable to precipitate. It's going to go more for acidification or you're not going to form those beautiful quartz veins. It's going to be more pervasive. And yeah, so it's going to be, and most of the time it's going to be iron buffering. So the iron is going to influence the gold to precipitate at that moment. Okay, so just want to say it's multiple generation because it's not just one event, it's multiple events. Everything is cross-cutted. So that's another way to recognize orogenic gold deposits. And right now I'm working, it's beautiful. I wish that for every geologist in the world. So we have lib scanning. And just the scanning, of course, is just beautiful, but libs for me is another level. And it gives you all the maps of the elements. And right now I'm doing this. It's a very complicated one. So I have identified 5 different pulses to create that deposit. So we have a sodic one dominated by albite, one with fuscite, with the potassic one, and we have one with carbonization and silicious, and then the volatile and then the potassic. So it's very complicated, and it changed. And every time we have a temperature, we have a mineral that is triggered. There's a trigger for minerals to be formed. So this is, for example, for the sodic alteration. So the light color is the place where we have albite. So you can see it's not regular. It's like infiltrating, you know, where it can't. And also you would see that the albite is it's gradual. It's strong in the center, and it's degrading while expanding. So that's for the sodic. And the gold, there's gold related to that. So in the bright colors, we have the sodic. And you can see that when we have the sodic place, sometimes the gold is going to precipitate. If we have enough disturbance, it's going to precipitate. But it's not the high grade. It's more low grade. When we go to this one, this is where we have better grade. So and here we can see so this carbonization have a link with the chloride. So and the chloride you're going to see is more in the green zone. But maybe that's too much complicated for today. And that's the volatile. And so the light color is a chlorine with lithium. It's a second phase of chloride. And this is one of the richest one. This is one of the events that brings the more gold. Let's go in that deposit. And that's another map with the lithium chloride. And I think, the resolution is bad. But that's the little points where we point some gold, and we want to figure out what's the relation, you know, with the. And as you can see, it's not clear. Sometimes it's at the periphery. Okay, so once again, I just remember that's really important, because when you are at that depth, you need shearing to be able to travel to make traveling your fluids. If you don't have shearing, there's no pathway. Everything is blocked. The only way is to go into the shearing. Okay, so once again, also that's an important thing. If you have a vein that have some teeth, you know, like cum textures or opening, you're not in that level. You're too. If you have these type of veins, you're upper in the system. Because at that depth, everything is filled. There's no cavities. So carbonates, and so we are an orogenic. So you're gonna have anchorite, siderite, carbonites. You always have carbs, and it's not carbs that comes after. It's in the same time. You never go, and I'm gonna show another example. So okay, so that's to show that the veins are formed. So that's the shearing, you know. So you have a compensation, filling the tension gases, and precipitation of the sulfur in the center. That's typical. It's beautiful, typical of orogenic veins. And also, I want to show the power of the carbonization. So that's a little vein. It's a couple of centimeters, maybe 2 or 3 centimeters. See the halo of carbonization. It's like 10 times bigger. So that's really important. If you don't have the carbonate alteration after the vein, I don't believe in it. It's for me, it's not orogenic. It's not, that's good, not that type. Okay, and that's an example of gold. So that's the highway. So where are we going to precipitate gold? In the little streets. That's the place we're going to precipitate. Some relation with the CRD also. Okay, even a different environment. So what else to say? Sometime we have. Okay, the quartz going to be saccharoidal. Sorry if the picture is bad, but you're going to see the quartz is like little grains. And sometimes if you have enough carbs, when it's get withered, it looks like a saccharoid texture. And the only things that could look like growing minerals, if you have a really chloride-rich environment, sometimes the chloride particles can go, and when the crystal grow, it's going to meet, it's going to do some bridge. There's a specific name for that texture. I just forgot. I don't have time for that. So another typical example of orogenic gold veins is when because you have horizontal pressuring. So if you have something brittle, so the fracture is going to be like this, and so the vein is going to be sub-horizontal. So because we have that at la Herradura, the first time I saw that, I says, holy shit, that's orogenic. But we have to verify if the gold is in that specific vein. And because I didn't do it, I don't know the answer. So I don't know. I will go with the people that work there with their experience. So other example of orogenic veins. So it could be very, very structurally controlled. You know, it's just obvious. Okay. other example, I don't care. What else to say? Okay, so really important, the veins are filled. Even if there is some tourmaline, you know, growing, trying to go with the center, it's going to be filled. There's no gap. There's no opening. Too much pressure. So another example of false orogenic. So in Canada, it's just funny sometimes because I think I'm going to go with the best example. The best example is this one. It's so that's inside an orogenic gold deposit. And you can see the relics of the VMS stockwork. And here, that's typical chalcopyrite. And see the shape of the chalcopyrite. It's not, the one at the top has been transposed, you know? So you have some tectonism, so you flattening the sulfur. But this one has not been touched. So that's original sulfur that was created, in my opinion, in a VMS environment because it's like it's spreading with the little points. So I can return to that. So Malartic, it's a porphyry that was totally deformed, and yes, there's carbs everywhere. So there's orogenic fluids, and it allows to remobilize the gold inside the axon plane and the folds, and the shears also. And same thing for Chichu. I worked there for a year. Structural, another porphyry there, and the Tijerit, a VMS. So sometimes we can be fooled. So it's not the original. The orogenic allows some movement of the gold inside the deposit. And one of the best example is that's in Canada. That's in Red Lake. So that's VMS. And these people say it was orogenic, but people start to find evidence of epidermal textures. That's bedded veins. That's low sulfidation. And same thing here. We have amethyst with barite. This is intermediate sulfidation, typical. And same thing here. We have marcasite, you know. And even it was transformed. It was metamorphosed to pyrite, but you can still recognize the original shape of the marcasite. So that's example that we can that they are not real orogenic. They're deformed deposit. Do we have that in Mexico? I don't know. I didn't have time. For me, I have to see it from my own eyes. So it's easy to get fooled in Mexico. First time I came here, I was fooled also. I'm not gonna lie, I was totally fooled. So it's easy to get fooled because there's gold inside metamorphic rocks. We have gold mineralization inside shear zone, trusting or retro trusting or detachment. You can have quartz vein inside of important shear zone, and the last one you're gonna like it. Okay. So the first time I came into Mexico, I was younger, I had a hair, and I was happy. And I have to say, this is so funny. So I was doing the mapping, and because we have an erogenous, and it's pushing that way, you know, so everything's supposed to be pointing northeast. But no, everything was pointing southwest. So what the hell was going on with that country, you know, with the kinematics indicator? So I called Michel Gauthier, and I says, come, please see that, because I don't understand. So he says, Josh, have you ever heard about detachment faults? I says, no. So and lucky he had good contacts. We were able to visit La Herradura and also Cananea. It was so funny because at Cumeral, my project was mapping. There was more similitude. It was something in between Herradura and Cananea. I thought this because I visited those projects. And also, just before mapping in Mexico, at Cumeral, I went to Peru and I visited a porphyry. And I said, shit, there's some similarities with the veins and like phytic alteration. So I talked with Jeffrey and Chris. I showed him the thing. He says, that looks phytic for me. You should talk with Tom Amundsen to do some fluid inclusions. But it didn't happen. So, and one day, when I received my fluid inclusion, I found that. So that's what changed for me, huh? Because because we had the orogenic quartz veins, you know, it's typical orogenic. But the gold was really in specific place. And I did some section because when you have a thesis, you want to show the gold to the people, you know, that's the gold, you know. And the gold was found really in those little veins. Come on. Hey, what? Okay, so I'm gonna move. So I want to say that there's I have to move. I have to jump. Okay, so just to explain that. So at Cumeral, you have so many episodes of quartz veins. You have veins that were totally deformed, boudinage, you know, that's in the detachment. So that was veins that were formed during the erogenous, but that were deformed by the detachment. And also, you have different level of deformation. You have boudinage, but you have also dismembering by just the schistosity and not by subductile deformation. So let's return to the orogenic vein. So the gold was really in those little veinlets. Ah, shit, this thing doesn't work. Okay, yeah, so pay attention. Okay, the gold is in the little veins. And in the little veins, we see the epidode. That's the key. And for people who are specialized in fluids, there's not too much erythromelism that can generate quartz, chlorate, and gold and pyrite together. If you are orogenic, you're going to have carbs. That's the first thing you're going to have. And there's no carbs, zero. So, that was suspicious. And if you have epithermal, you're going to have weird shit like freaking lead, zinc, and copper and stuff like that. And bismuth, you know, and moly and stuff like that. So it wasn't there. It was really clean mineralization. So that's a little focus, you know, on just to show where's the gold. So the gold was trapped, you know, by a little place, you know, really far gold for him to precipitate. We have some hematite, but it's just pyrite that was withered. Okay, so that's a picture with the reflecting light, just to show that we have the gold. And you see the shape of gold. It's like little balls, you know. So it's not the typical glue to the sulfur. Juxtapose. So more free gold. Okay, so that was in my thesis. That was supposed to be a PhD, and it was never accepted. Fuck these guys. And doesn't matter. So I think I was wrong at that time. I didn't have enough experience at that time. So I put the retromorphism at the end, which is really stupid. So I identified many phases, but the three most important ones were the phytization, the quartz veins, and the retrometamorphism. But right now, with my experience, I would go like this. Retrometamorphism first, phytic alteration, and at the end, there's little quartz veins that have some cavities and have very high-grade gold. Okay? So, and that's the professor. That's Michel Gauthier. He says, Josh, you have to pay attention to that because this is the gold that comes with the retrometamorphism. I have 0.1 to 0.3 grams per ton in these things. Says, Josh, there's gold in there. And this is retrometamorphism. It's not orogenic. It's it's retrometamorphism. So you have the maximum, you know, that's orogeny. After you relax, and when you relax, this is where you have your retro trusting, and this at that specific moment, you can create that. And after that, it's going to be something else. So other pictures for me right now I can share the information. So I put some pictures just to you can see it. You know, so it's just not This is the proof. Like it's there. You cannot. It's there. And so, same thing. Epidode, quartz, gold, pyrite, and also if you have some pyrite that was there from the metamorphism, the cubic ones, sometimes in the fractures, the gold is going to go there. Okay, so last month there was a very good talk from Professor Valencia, one of the best talks I heard in my life. You have to see it, and the one that listened to it, you're really lucky to have it. So I'm going to take some figures from his presentation, and he's using orogenic gold deposit. He says, hey, I'm gonna have to talk with this guy at the end of the talk, but during the presentation, he says there's no orogenic gold. It's more metamorphic. And I started to applaud, you know. I was pretty happy that someone understand that. So I'm going to use the same zone that he used. And that's his figure. It's not me, okay? So he's suggesting that we have something during the orogenesis or at the end. Okay, so that's an article that was produced, and that's the person. It's not I don't like his work. I just think there's a little bit of a mistake. And the problem is not this guy. The problem, it's the people that accept the articles because they knew that there were some deposits that were not orogenic. So his work is good. So I'm a person. I like to focus. I like to focus on the good thing, not on bad things. So let's focus on the good thing that he produced. So that's perfect. This is an amazing section. Everybody should use it. It's beautiful. So this is how you produce your copper moly porphyries. Thank you. This figure, I don't like it too much, but there's something I like. He pointed out that reactivated laramide truss fault. So in short words, this is retrometamorphism. The guy, he saw it. He didn't understand it, but he saw it. And he pointed out. So that's why it's so important to be descriptive. If you don't understand something, just describe. You can understand later. So to have orogenic gold deposit, it's really important that you have a fertile rock. So do we have fertile volcanic sedimentary rock to be subducted or to be sheared or to be able to compress and to extract the fluids? I'm not sure. Because it looks like a continental, let's go. It's more continental, so it's not favorable for the I don't see green rocks there. But who knows? So, and also during his presentation, he was talking about flattening, you know, thick skin. So in short word, we have subduction, and it was more rapid. And at one thing, you're underplating your subduction, and you get stuck, you know. And this is, holy shit, that was so interesting. And this is where I come up to. So that was the interpretation of the young guy, which is not bad. It's okay. But I would go with something like that. And maybe I'm wrong. I'm just proposing that. I think that we have underplating, and because we subduct the Farallon plate. So at one point, we're going to subduct the dorsal where we produce, and it's thinner, and there's so much chloride there that's easy to break. And maybe it broke there because there was so much pressure at one point. So it accumulate, and it break exactly where the dorsal was. So what you're going to do, you're going to have something a little bit like that. I want to go too much in detail. People can take that concept and write an article about it. I don't care. You just put my name somewhere that you refer to me. I don't care. But with this, we could generate what I think the deposits that we have in that specific zone. Okay. Oh yeah, and that's the old concept. It's not me. It's really important to refer to the person where you get the concept. So it's from Ray Rig in '86. It's not me. It's him. Okay. So after you have a beautiful environment to create deshydration and maybe create some epithermal or maybe shallow porphyries. I don't know. So let's take a look at that. Shallow, so type of porphyry. So one of the best article on the porphyry on Earth, and in my opinion, from the SEG, of course. So we have different type of porphyry, but it goes with the depth. So the deeper one, the one typical that we have in Mexico, it's copper moly. But if you have problems with the subduction and what we have earlier, you can end up with one of those three types of porphyries. And you can see there's a close relation with gold and copper. And ¿dónde está? Amigo. Nosotros tenemos un proyecto que se llama cobre y es un porfido de cobre oro. Entonces, no es un porfido típico de cobre moly. Entonces, sabemos que en México tenemos una tectónica muy especial, muy cabrón. Entonces, we have a very special tectonic, and it creates different type of porphyries, and we have to be aware of that and their potential. Okay, so okay, I'm gonna slide. That concept was too early, and it was really easy to figure out that because I made the list, you know, and I did a little bit of investigation, and in 2 hours I had my answers, you know, because there's good geology that was made by good geologists from the ACG. So in resume, from all the deposit that he proposed, I'm gonna go like, so yeah, I'm gonna go here maybe. So in most of the deposit that were proposed, so all the one in the center, yes, they're weird deposit, but the rest they're just epithermals and porphyry-like. So let's talk about these one. These weird guys, weird flat quartz veins deposit. Okay, so same thing. That's from Martin, and there's always a background of gold, like 0.1. And also something beautiful about Herradura, the guys were able to mine at 0.1 gram per ton. That's a game changer. These guys did a miracle, and this is why I like them so much. I respect you a lot, the guys from Fresnillo, seriously. And because it changed the perspective. You can mine very more lower grade, and it changed. It's just you can allow to do in very to limit or deposits. And something I want to point out, that's not me, that's Morton. You know, he has the credit. So he put here the trace of the mega shear. And this guy have a lot of experience because so many people draw that line before. But Martin, he has so much experience. As you can see, there's a little curve here. And little curve is just the perfect environment to create shadow pressure and weird, like more porosity, you know, for your hydrothermalism. So, and this is where maybe it can be the right moment and the right place to do the retro-metamorphism gold endowment that I was talking to you about with the quartz epidote veins. So I want to bring that again. Okay, so the quartz, the retro-metamorphic metasmatism of quartz epidote orifice pyrite dissemination. That event. So that's a gold endowment. This one is phylization. Is going to steal the gold from this one. And this one is so rich, he doesn't care. It just precipitates gold and he's happy. Okay, let's take a look at that. So what we have, metamorphic core complex in that region. We have detachment fault. We have porphyry intermediate, felsic intrusive. I don't see deposit. I see just porphyry intrusive. Okay. We have large courses, sericite alteration, quartz veit with urgal quartz. So if you have quartz that have been able to grow, it was not an orogenic condition. It was not deep. It was really shallow. At least epizonal, if you want. There's quartz vein without carbs. Because when I was putting the acid, the first thing, something I forgot to mention, when I did the mapping, I was trying to find some evidence of orogenic gold quartz. You know, I was putting acid. It was no reaction. Everything was dry. You know, no carbs. And I had some also galena, sphalerite, chalcopyrite. That was weird. It's not the right chemistry for orogenic. And also, there was gold that was found at the limit between our hornblende gneiss and biotite schist. That's another key. And maybe it's potassic alteration at one point. So, metamorphic core complex, I think you know that. And the dome is really important. So, you have different type of shearing. So, my conclusion was that Cumeral was in the upper plate, and La Joba was the lower plate, or the opposite. Okay. So, okay. La Herradura mine. Okay. So, at the top of the Herradura mine, there were someone, because we asked, he says, do you have melanite? Because if you have orogenic gold deposits, somewhere you're going to have like a melanite. I says, yeah, we have one. So, we go there. No, pure lies. We never go there. Someone brought a sample there, and we tried to figure out what was the direction of the shear. So I didn't have time to do proper work to do it. But in my opinion, if I have to guess if it's a melanite that is pro-orogenic or post-orogenic detachment fault, I would go for detachment. And I don't know. And also when you have detachment fault, you have like a spoon effect in the faulting. And also, so if we put that detachment fault in the Herradura pit, you know, it just lands in the middle of the deposit. Quite a coincidence. I don't know. So what else? Oh yeah, so that's also an example from Mesquite mine. So it's very bad, but that's the hornblende gneiss, and in that shear zone you have biotite, the biotite gneiss. So really suspicious for potassic alteration, and maybe gold endowment. So that's my philic alteration that I have at Cumeral. And if you're aware in other projects, as someone, because I really like these deposits. So if you have a project in Sonora that has gold and is at that belt, I'm ready to make a visit for free. I just want to see the rocks. I'm passionate about that, and I hope one day I'm going to see an orogenic gold quartz, put some acid, and it's reacting, and way, solved, you know. So, but sometimes it's not this. So, for example, when I was doing my thesis, so sometimes you have felsic schist and the muscovite schist, and when you have the philic alteration, it's very difficult to figure it out because it's very subtle because it's the same composition. So it's really with the size of the muscovite and the white mica and the pyrite. This is where you're gonna figure it out. Okay, so that's the great moment I want to show. So this is that really what's helped me to figure out that there was a phytic alteration. Phytic is QSP, quartz sericite pyrite. See the power of the alteration of the sterilization. That's typical phytic. It's not orogenic. If it would be orogenic, it would be all carbs. And you put acid there, there's no reaction. And yeah, so even in the vein, there's no reaction, there's no carbs. And you see the size of the pyrite, you have a lot of time to grow. Like a porphyry. Okay, and so, and after I visit other, I work a lot on different projects and everything. So that's another example that we have in BC. And see, that's the vein of Cumeral, that's the vein that we have. It's a porphyry system. And I work with the Almadex, we have a project in Nevada, close to Paradise Peak. And we have veins there. And same thing, you have the strong QSP alteration. It's the same thing, sorry. So, and it's related to a porphyry. And same thing, when you go to San Francisco mine, you have these big zones, you know, with huge mica. And you have also the same thing, the big pyrites with cavities. So that was not made in a deep orogenic gold environment. At least could be epizonal. I'm gonna try to open my mind. But that size of mica, I would definitely, if I have the choice, I would go with a porphyry. And I don't say a copper moly. I would go for gold copper porphyry. So once again, a lot of open space, big, huge mica, muscovite. And same thing at Herradura. So like I mentioned, I didn't go there. I just went there one time, so I didn't have time to pick up a lot of samples. But that's from the thesis that was done there. So that seems to be real, you know. So, and also, maybe I should not use it. Okay, so that's from Cumeral. So that's the quartz I'm talking to you about. That really looks orogenic. But if you look carefully, you're going to see open spaces with quartz. So that's not deep quartz. This is really epizonal or epithermal or porphyry-like. And I went with Mike. You know, we went to Cuatro Hermanos, and this is... It looks so much like the quartz that I have. It looks so much like what I have at Cumeral. The same type of quartz, a little bit whitish and placed with hydral quartz, open space quartz. So very similar, a lot of similarities. Also in porphyry, if you have a lot of tectonics, you can create these veins. You know, that's directly from Cuatro Hermanos. This is not from. So you can create those veins that have like a tension gaseous aspect. So. This is from Cumeral, so that's the last event, and you can see it cross-cut the fabrics of the detachment. So this is why I think it's post-detachment. So it just used the fabric, and it cuts the schistosity. So this is it. I can talk for more. What else I can say? So that's from the thesis that was made on Herradura. So once again, you can see the white mica. So I'm pretty sure that Herradura is not one just event. For me, it is at least the retro-metamorphic event and that porphyry-like event, because you guys have the white mica also. So it might be a gold porphyry. Not sure. And so my question: would you be able to recognize a porphyry? You know, because it's not easy sometimes. So this is it. I think I point out most of the things. I can continue. It's a long talk, and it's the end of the day. That's from Noche Buena. You know, you have a typical epithermal minerals. You know, it's not typical of orogenic. It's super well crystallized and open space. You know, have time to grow. So, and also it was a really funny question. So when I did that talk in 2019, there's a young guy. He says, "Hey, and what about the datation and the fluid inclusion?" But it's the same story. If you do the study inside the orogenic quartz, of course you're going to be orogenic in characteristic. But like I mentioned, the gold was inside subtle fracturation. So did the person, you know, are you sampling the right thing when you're doing your study? So maybe I can finish with that. So I'm subdividing the type, the zoning inside the orogenic, and I think it's important. Because they're different environment with different conditions, you know. So maybe let's go there. So for me, the real orogenic, it's really when you have mesothermal inside mesozonal. After 9 kilometers, there's something weird and there's not enough information. Here we have a couple of examples of these weird deposits that we have antimony and mercury. Are they variation of epithermal? I don't have the knowledge. So I would definitely separate that continuum. And of course, the false orogenic one is on the bottom when you're in fibrilate facies because the gold wouldn't go, you know? It would be expulsed from that. So you have something there, it's just a deformed deposit. So this is it. Be aware of the cookie cutter. Sometimes you have to make your own models. So this is it. Oh yeah, I want to say thanks to, what's his name? Let's go. He corrected his presentation and it's beautiful right now. It makes more sense. I like that. So this is it. So thank you. Thank you.